Global stocks and U.S. bond yields dived this morning while the dollar, gold and oil prices rocketed higher following the start of the Russian military operation. U.S. President Joe Biden says Washington and its allies will impose severe sanctions on Russia following the attacks. The equities rout in Asia looked set to continue in Europe and the United States. Now, with a sharp jump in commodity prices adding to worries about inflation and risks to economic growth. Now, for more on the impact of the Ukraine crisis, our market anchor Nastassia Arendse joins us now in studio. Very good afternoon to you, Natasha. Thank you so much for joining us. So now we've seen the Russia-Ukraine conflict being a source of major market pressures and leading to back-to-back losses on the markets for weeks. But then one would argue that on the bright side, it's an opportunity to buy more and set himself up for future gains, isn't it?
You could argue that you could buy the dip, as people say, but the question is, we don't know whether this is a case of catching a falling knife. How low can things go right now? It's an opportunity from a local perspective because we did see the Asian markets right up into Europe. Our local markets also opening lower, red across the screen. So whether it's a buy the dip opportunity, that's something we're going to unpack a little bit later on. Right. But let's look at the impact that we have seen in terms of the metals and commodities. Nickel and aluminium, the major components part of the global supply chain. We do know that they are involved in a lot of the major industrial products. Russia is, of course, one of the biggest exporters when it comes to aluminium and nickel. So the graph that we have on screen for you just shows you the supply dynamics when it comes to U.S. imports from Russia, totaling about $30 billion in 2021. They're 33% above 2019 levels. And platinum, palladium, and of course food are the biggest imports to the US from Russia. Platinum and palladium used quite a bit in major catalytic converters, especially when it comes to vehicles. Russia, of course, is the top exporter when it comes to palladium and platinum to the US. But let's look at it from a Ukraine point of view. We'll put a graph on screen for you now just to see why everybody is concerned, especially when they look at natural gas flows from Russia. Russia, the third largest oil producing country in the world, producing an average of about 10.5 million barrels per day in total liquid fuels. And half of Russia's exports of oil go to Europe. And especially when you're looking at it from an agricultural point of view, this crisis has increased sun oil supply, at least the price of it, and fueling the veg oils rally. But the reason this, when we look at nat gas and why it's going to be a problem for Europe, there's a whole lot of supply chain disruptions that could be impacted here. A lot of the freight companies are going to be looking at the natural gas price, in particular, as we look at what is going on here. Some even speculating that we could see freight companies driving a whole lot slower when it comes to delivering various goods because everybody's concerned that there might be a supply shortage. But let's look at it from a dollar Russian ruble point of view to see what has been happening with the currency. Right now, about 89.62 to the dollar. We did see it plummet at least about 7%, where the US dollar gained 7% versus the Russian ruble. It's at an all-time low, and there's speculation that the central bank in Russia will have to step in here as most traders are starting to short the Russian currency. And that price action that we're seeing when it comes to the US dollar and the Russian ruble intensified immediately when the European markets open. But let's switch from a gold perspective, because generally in times like this, we do see most investors fleeing to safe haven assets such as gold, such as the Japanese yen, etc. But gold right now, $1,942 a fine ounce, rallying about 2%. We have seen gold rise about 8% for the month of February. So this is some of the price action we'll see. Perhaps the picture will change even higher in about an hour or so when we get into the markets discussion with our analysts. But let's have a look at Brent crude. It was quite fascinating to see what was happening with the price action. The graph that I have on screen for you shows you what was going on early this morning, 5:30 South African time, we did see the price of Brent going from 97.54 as Vladimir Putin was delivering his speech, all the way to about 100. This lasted for about 5 minutes and then it dropped down back to about 99. It's now hovering at around $102 a barrel. This is the highest we've seen since 2014. WTI in the US, though, also up 4.6%. And the question that everyone is trying to figure out right now is, as we look at the oil price, there is a concern that it is going to increase inflationary issues. The question for analysts is that, does it force central banks to step back their monetary policy easing and tightening, or does it force them to actually step it up a little bit because inflation concerns could be persistent? But Simpiwe, this is something that we're going to be keeping an eye on in the next hour.
All right, Nastassia, thank you so much for that update. I do appreciate your time.